Civilian death toll in Ukraine since 2022, 13,000. Civilian death toll in Gaza since October 2023, over 53,000. Israel has killed more than 4 times as many civilians in a fraction of the time. It's bombed refugee camps, schools, journalists, aid convoys. This is not collateral damage. It's their policy. And yet, again, Russia is banned from the Olympics, from FIFA, from the IIHF. Israel, full participation. And again, this is not about civilian harm. This is not about protecting athletes. If it was, Israel would be sanctioned 1,000 times over. This is about which states are allowed to kill with impunity and which ones aren't. I do very much have to say though, like anytime there's like this weird gaslighting that goes on with international hockey in all of these tournaments, and I think about it every time. Like they mentioned that the Swiss pulled off one of the biggest upsets in their national team's history by beating Russia. And there's such a like prevailing myth, like this myth about sports being neutral, that sports is somehow like above politics. It's like immune to war, ideology, atrocity, or even genocide. And this is the narrative that we're sold every time. Every time that the Olympics roll around, or when FIFA issues another press release about uniting the world through football or whatever. The reality though is that again, sports is statecraft. It's a geopolitical weapon on skates or with cleats. It's nationalism in motion. But you don't get a medal unless your state signs off on it. Your anthem doesn't get to be played unless your foreign policy is aligned with the ruling powers. And when a country steps out of line, really out of line, it doesn't just get sanctioned in the UN or slapped with tariffs. It gets blacklisted from the grandest stage of these statecraft spectacles like the Olympics. But only if it's the right country. And that's what I'm talking about in like terms of Russia. Let's talk about Russia, okay? Because I'm in no way going to excuse what Russia has done, because my point here is to talk about what the system did in response, and more importantly, what it didn't do elsewhere. Because Russia has poured billions into sports washing. The 2014 Sochi Olympics cost more than any other Olympic Games in history. The 2018 World Cup was very much like a prestige project, a spectacle that was meant to rebrand the country as a modern, stable, normal state, right? Gazprom logos plastered all over Champions League matches, UEFA hosting finals in St. Petersburg, and whatever. It worked though. It worked until it didn't, because when Russia invaded Ukraine in 2022, suddenly the entire Western-backed sporting order snapped into action. UEFA ripped the Champions League final from Russia. FIFA banned them from World Cup qualifiers. The IIHF said they couldn't compete in any international hockey for 4 years. The IOC booted their Olympic Committee, not just sanctions, exile, a sports essential death sentence. And the excuse? Protecting athletes. Sure, that's why their anthem was banned. That's why their uniform was disallowed. That's why their flag was essentially erased. Because the truth is, if it was just about safety, they could have competed under neutral status like they have done before. But no, this is full-on expulsion. And it has nothing to do with fairness or principle. What it has to do with is with punishing a geopolitical enemy, which again, fine. If that's the world we want to live in, fine. But don't dare pretend that this is about rules or morality, because if it was, there would be a lot more other countries, maybe one in specific, that would be joining Russia on the sidelines. And that brings me to Israel, because since October 2023, Israel has killed over 50,000 people in Gaza. And that's not speculation. That's from the Gaza Health Ministry, corroborated by numerous UN agencies, field reports, even Western media. Most of these casualties are women and children. Entire neighborhoods, entire cities have been flattened. Hospitals bombed, over 200 journalists killed, starvation being used as a weapon, like an actual textbook genocide with ICC arrest warrants to back it up. You'd think that the international sporting bodies that govern these events would react in some way. You think that the IOC would suspend Israel's Olympic Committee just like they did to Russia. You think that FIFA would expel them just like they did to Russia. You think that the International Ice Hockey Federation would bar Israel from hockey events as they did with Russia and Belarus. But no, Israel's national teams are still competing. Their athletes are preparing for the Winter Olympics, either for Israel or as Israelis playing for other teams like Germany or Canada or the US. They will carry their flag. They will hear their anthem. They're not going to be forced into neutrality. They're embraced. They're protected. And when countries try to protest, like when Indonesia says it's not going to host a FIFA tournament with an Israeli team, FIFA doesn't suspend Israel. It punishes Indonesia. It moves the whole tournament somewhere else. When 300 Palestinian Sports Club asks the IOC to kick out Israel, they get ignored. When Australia says that they can't guarantee safety for Israeli players in a hockey tournament, the IIHF doesn't disqualify Israel, they just cancel the whole event. If that's not a double standard, then there is no such thing as a double standard. Because, let's talk about this in terms of just straight up material terms. Civilian death toll in Ukraine since 2022, 13,000. Civilian death toll in Gaza since October 2023, over 53,000. Israel has killed more than 4 times as many civilians in a fraction of the time. It's bombed refugee camps, schools, journalists, aid convoys. This is not collateral damage. It's their policy. And yet, again, Russia is banned from the Olympics, from FIFA, from the IIHF. Israel, full participation. And again, this is not about civilian harm. This is not about protecting athletes. If it was, Israel would be sanctioned 1,000 times over. This is about which states are allowed to kill with impunity and which ones aren't. Now, the biggest thing about this is money. Let's talk money. The International Olympic Committee doesn't run on goodwill. It runs on cash. There's massive broadcast deals. NBC alone is paying $7.65 billion to broadcast the Olympics through 2032. Sponsors like Visa, Coca-Cola, Samsung, they fund these games. And those companies, they don't want any business pissing off Washington or Wall Street or Tel Aviv. So when Israel slaughters tens of thousands of people on live TV, the IOC says nothing because saying something would cost them ratings, advertising, state support. Same with FIFA. Same thing with the IIHF. These bodies don't uphold any types of principles, profit, and partnerships with the places that can help them make those profits. They exist to protect the interests of Western power, and Israel is a part of that power block. Russia is not, and so Russia is on the sidelines. That's the difference. It's not about what you do, it's about who you are. And then you just look at the rhetoric, right? The official justification. When Russia invades Ukraine, it's unprovoked aggression. When Israel bombs civilians in Gaza, it's self-defense. Russia gets painted as this rogue state, while Israel is casted as a democracy under threat by anti-Semitic Arabs. The same talking points show up in the press releases of the IOC, of FIFA, and others. We must stand in solidarity with Ukraine. Okay, sure. So where's the solidarity with Palestine? Why is the flag of a state under ICC investigation for genocide flying at Olympic events? Simple. Perception management, narrative engineering. Russia's war is framed as a threat to European order. Israel's war is framed as noble counterterrorism. Russia is the villain. Israel is the partner. It's that framing that determines who gets punished and who gets platformed. Sports doesn't rise above this. It becomes an accelerator for it. And then you just got to look at the public demand. What about the people? Over 370,000 people have signed a petition demanding Israel be banned from the Olympics. 12 Middle Eastern football associations demanded FIFA act. Hundreds of athletes and broadcasters protested Israel's inclusion in Eurovision. Civil society is screaming to get Israel out of these events. And the response, time after time, is silence, deflection, excuses about keeping politics out of sport, which somehow is never applied when Russia is in the dock. Politics are mandatory. When it's Israel Politics are forbidden. We don't do politics. We don't mix politics with sports. It's absurd. The only consistency with all of this is contradiction and hypocrisy. Because again, like I said, sports is not neutral. It's never been neutral. It's a tool of power. It tells us who's worthy and who isn't, who gets to be seen and who gets to be erased, who gets punished and who gets protected. Russia is punished not because of some universal standard, but because it's a pariah in the eyes of the West. Israel is protected not because it's innocent, because it's an ally of the West. That's it. That's the game. So when you watch the next Olympics and the next World Cup or the next World Hockey Championship, or even the next glossy ad campaign about unity and peace and inclusion, know that what you're watching is a bald-faced lie. It is a manufactured spectacle, a geopolitical billboard draped in flags and anthems while children bleed out under the rubble in Gaza. And if you're okay with that, then at least have the guts to admit it, because the rest of it see right through it. And none of what I'm saying here is in support of Russia. It's just simply in contrast of the two. If you're going to punish Russia, you need to punish Israel for doing far worse. And that's the fact of the matter.